The main human racial groups tend to have noticeable differences in skull shapes, so much so that it is often possible to identify the race of a given skull, just by looking at it. Skull shapes can be classified into three types: Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloid, or similarly Black, White, and East Asian to represent the three main racial groupings of mankind. In fact, anthropologists, archaeologists and crime scene investigators do this all the time. To begin, African skulls tend to have larger rounder nose openings, rounder eye sockets and a more sloping facial profile, which from the side view results in the mouth region sticking out from the face more than that of the Asian or Caucasoid type. Caucasians tend to have long and narrow skulls with less pronounced cheekbones and more elongated chins. When compared to African skulls, Caucasians tend to have more triangular-shaped nose openings and somewhat squared eye openings. When compared to Asian or Mongoloid skulls, they are narrower and not flat-faced like the Asian skulls. Finally, East Asian or Mongoloid skulls tend to be short and broad, with wide cheekbones. North American, South American, Central American Indians, and Mexican mestizos are examples of people who generally fall into this Asian skull category. The anthropological term for these short broad skull type is brachycephalic. The oldest brachycephalic or Asian skulls found in the Americas are approximately 9,000 years old, whereas the oldest Caucasian or dolichocephalic skulls found in the Americas are from 9,000 to over 13,000 years old. This trend of the oldest human remains in the Americas being Caucasian and not of the wide Asian shape is actually widely known in the anthropological community. For example, Dr. George Gill, of the University of Wyoming is on the record stating, quote, "Examining these earliest remains shows me that some were Caucasian." End quote. Further, Dr. Sylvia Gonzalez, who led the radiocarbon dating research on the oldest human remains ever found in the Americas stated, quote, "It's quite possible that dolichocephalic or Caucasoid man existed in North America well before the native Indians." End quote. Again, two prominent researchers from mainstream universities saying that the oldest skulls in the Americas tend to be Caucasian in shape. There are of course many others in the scientific community who know this fact, although generally suppressed in the mainstream media. Although a craniometric analysis involves using multiple sophisticated measurements of the skull, and anthropologists can often easily determine racial group membership just by looking at the skull, anthropologists also have relatively simple ways of identifying the racial group to which a skull belongs. Here is an example from Wikipedia's craniofacial anthropometry section. Quote, "Imagine that you are handed a U.S. skull and asked to determine whether the person was white, black, or Asian, that is, Euro-American, African-American, or Asian-American. Place the skull face down on a tabletop. Now try to rock it from side to side. If it fails to rock, but instead sits high on its cheekbones, with a face too flat to let the nose portion touch the table, then the chances are that it is of East Asian ancestry. If it rocks from side to side because the midline of the face protrudes past the cheekbones like the bow of a boat, then it is probably of either African or European ancestry. Now stand the skull upright so that it rests on the neck opening. If the face slopes down and forwards because the mouth protrudes farther forward than the forehead, then it is likely black. If the face is vertical, it is probably Caucasoid. In practice, many other tests are necessary in order to hazard a determination, but, in the end, it works because there are consistent differences among U.S. endogamous groups. A skull that matches the group of features associated with African American ancestry is called Negroid. Skulls with traits suggesting European and Asian ancestry are called, respectively, Caucasoid and Mongoloid. End quote. These basic facts about the skull shapes of the different racial groupings of mankind should give you a basic sense of the differences involved. Now let us do a comparison of some of the oldest skulls found in the Americas. Remember that these are the actual pictures of skulls radiocarbon dated to be between 9,000